Hello and welcome to the eSports podcast. My name is Billy Sims and I'm here to bring you all the news from everything eSports this past week. We've got a lot of topics to cover today. It's a little bit of a hot scuff Tuesday, but we're getting through. We're going to muscle on by. Topics today, we're going to be focusing on the MSI. The play-ins were this weekend and some excitement and some pretty much what you would expect results happening, but we'll break all those down, give you the recap, and give you the setup for the bracket stage. We also are going to be talking about League of Legends Vanguard anti-cheat and the controversy there. And then finally, we've got a little bit of Apex Legends. The playoffs are happening and we've got all the results, but I'm going to need a little bit of help, and we're going to bring this person in a little bit differently than we normally do. We've got him by voice call. Nick, are you on the line? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Good to be here.
We'll get your face and your body on stream as soon as we can, but currently we've got your audio in, a little bit of a phone tag version. But how you doing today? I know it's been a tough Tuesday, but that's the way it goes sometimes. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. And I should be up and running properly in less than 10. LOL.
All right. Well, fingers crossed on that, but I don't think we're going to wait 10 minutes to get started here on the topics today, get started on the show. So, Nick, I don't know if you got to hear me, but we're looking at the League of Legends MSI tournament, and then we're going to be looking at the Vanguard cheat code, anti-cheat software, and the controversy there, and some of the Apex Legends recaps. Did you get to watch any of the MSI or Apex playoffs this weekend?
I did not watch any of Apex, but I've watched, let's say, I would say 98% of matches for MSI for League this last couple days.
Gotcha. Well, give me a quick second. I'm going to turn the audio visualizer here so we can see you talk at least. But yeah, I was a little bit the opposite. I probably watched more Apex this past weekend than I did the MSI. Bit of a back and forth with streaming, and I was kind of all over the place, but I'm excited to break this down. I'm excited for some of these storylines and these narratives, so we're going to get started. Let me bring us over into a bit of a browsing scene. Fingers crossed it still works. All right, so it does, but we got a little bit of a flash bomb here. Okay, we're going to start with the Apex Global Series playoffs. This was the group stage happening this past weekend from the 2nd to the 3rd. There's 2 or 3 days of competition here, and we're pretty much just going to go over a bit of the results. More or less. It started off as a round robin entry and knocking people off. People who had the best winning records qualified for the bracket stage. And once they got to the bracket stage, that's when they moved into top level competition and potentially some big prize money. The bracket stage, winners bracket, was on May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Losers bracket also happened there. And then the finals coming up on May 5th, which was just 2 days ago on Sunday. So that's the breakdown of the format, a very loose breakdown of the format. Ultimately, this is all for points and for money. And it was pretty exciting to see, and we had one team that was pretty dominant, I believe. Reject Winity, congratulations, a $300,000 prize pool to those boys, and scoring 500 points for the playoffs in that playoff win. Nick, how you feel? I know you can't see any of this information. We're all ears for you, but I'm all ears to hear what you got to say. $300,000 for an Apex prize pool. Are you a bit shocked at that? Is that like where we want it?
That's pretty wild, man. I mean, the game is owned by a pretty wealthy company overall, but 300,000 just in general as far as esports is concerned is pretty good. And how big was this tournament for Apex? Just because I don't keep track of that.
Right. Well, this seemed to be the start of their Super Bowl a bit. Their like world championships, a little bit of a culmination of their season. This is a playoff round, but for $300,000 in a subsection of not like the world champion. That's amazing. That is like beyond levels. And this is I believe the 4th season of Apex. So we're talking about a pretty young esport. We're talking about a pretty young organization running the esport. But they've got the money, they've got the support, and maybe because it's more of a global entertainment thing and collective global, they're able to do this. The top 4 teams, real quick, were Reject Winity, Dark Zero eSports, Fnatic, and Not Moist, which, we've been talking a lot about Moist Critical and Ludwig, and here they are again, placing 4th with a prize pool of 85 grand. A few other teams that placed here. We had Legends, Cloud9, Aurora, Disguise, Luminosity. So again, we're seeing a lot of familiar faces, familiar orgs, especially in Apex, but across the board. I watched a little bit of collegiate esports this weekend, and I was seeing some of these same orgs sponsoring college teams, college professionals in Overwatch and Rocket League, in Apex, etc. Moving down, Space Station. Team Liquid or some of them. Crazy Raccoon. Unfortunately, Crazy Raccoon didn't place for any money, but they did walk away with 60 points. I'm not sure if that's going to really help them in the end. But the top 20 teams end up scoring money here. 9 grand for the 20th place team for that. So the range of prize pool here from 300,000 for first place to 9,000 for 20th place. Not too shabby. And we're talking about a field of 40 participants in this qualified playoffs play-ins. They had to compete to just get here and make a move. And yeah, there was like we talked about, the first format, the first couple days were group stages. They round robin Swiss, played each other, and the best records moved forward. Here's just a bunch of the teams that we saw playing and happening here. So overall, pretty exciting competition. Pretty cool to see Apex able to hold a competition just like this. And it was pretty great to see them bounce back after the last event, which, Nick, if you recall, and if you're still with me on the phone, you recall that was the hacker event. That was the major finals where they got hacked on stream. And it's nice to see that this bounced back and was a pretty smooth sailing event with such a high prize pool at stake.
Yeah, I mean, not seeing any of the symptoms of that hacking actually happen going forward after it did happen is pretty interesting overall. Just because, like, even when like League got hacked and other esports got hacked, it lasted for a while, not just
right.
like one tournament or whatever,
Right. Even the DDoSing issues happening in League Korea is still ongoing. They've been really hush about it, but it is still something that we're seeing a lot of pros have problems with. And we'll see how that impacts practice and whatnot with the MSI. But we'll talk about the MSI results and recap in a few minutes here. All right, on screen right now, we've got a little bit of the highlight winner's point of view from Apex as we kind of wrap up this subject and talking about this tournament. It was a team from Japan that took out first place, I believe, getting that 300K. They did seem to do it pretty confidently as compared to a lot of other teams struggling, but here they are moving together, working together. Not a lot of action, but sometimes that's the best in a battle royale type situation.
Yeah, I mean, the battle royale overall is Apex alone really does feel like the most skill-based one, because they have made a lot of progress with just like your landing. So there's really a lot of skill expression, like in how you play the character and how you play the map, because you do land with a little bit more than other like battle royales, with the way like the shield works and everything. So
okay,
which are really good changes. Like, in case you didn't know, like, you used to have to, like, you basically had to, like, pick up armor, back in the day and stuff like that. And now there's, like, growing armor and stuff like that. So you actually get armor on drop and stuff. So they made a lot of, quality of life changes for battle royales that you don't see in, like, other ones.
No, that's really great to hear, because I know Nintendo has a problem where they want to make it accessible to everybody, and part of that accessibility means dumbing it down or simplifying things or just kind of keeping things random. And when things are random, it's fun, but like it's hard to have a competitive aspect to like a serious degree. It sounds like those changes, especially in Apex and the mindset they have with it, is about keeping competitive integrity so that players, like you said, can have better skill expression. It's not just, oh, we're boned because we weren't able to drop, or our spawn in for the drop was on the other side of the map compared to where we wanted to go, and we didn't have the strategy or the angle to adjust. Right now on the clip, we're seeing the team do a pretty bunker strategy, to put it politely. They're digging a hole and they're burying themselves in there, I think, with Watson's fences and energy shield. Is that? But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, it basically the ultimate for Watson, unless they've changed it since the last time that I played, it kind of like eats projectiles.
Oh, so that's a pretty interesting thing. They're creating a fence where it's going to probably knock out their shields for anybody who pushes them. They're fencing themselves. Oh, it stuns them. Well, they're fencing themselves in against the boundary, I guess, the out of bounds boundary. Playing the time, and then they're just kind of holding a corner and using Watson's ultimate to eat projectiles and just kind of basically say, no, get away from me, don't even bother, as a big poke strategy here. But it's really cool to see, and it seems to be the right mindset they had, because they ended up coming out in first place.
That Watson ultimate is super strong, just in general. Like, even when I played, like, again, if they changed it, they changed it. But I doubt that they changed it, because it was relatively strong, but not like overpowered a good amount of the time. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the one thing I need to do, is I got to keep up a little bit more on abilities for the newer characters. I know they had a big patch, and actually, let's shift into that real quick while we're waiting for you to convene. And Nick, let me know when you get to a point when we can try to bring you on screen again. But I'm going to switch us into... All right. Sounds good, man. I'm going to switch us into just taking a look at those patch notes, because it is a pretty big deal. We're going to kind of review them a little bit and see what they mean. And like Nick, be sure to jump in with your input if you have any. Otherwise, I'm going to just kind of read through and provide mine.
Go for it.
All right. So Season 21 patch notes coming up, and this is probably going to change a lot of competitive play and the expectations on it. The first thing is the wingman. Sorry. First off is the wingman. Wingman, if I could talk correctly. First off, the wingman is getting a bit of a nerf, it seems like. Projectile size reduced. Damage reduced to 45, was 50. The Skull Piercer Elite removed. Hipfire accuracy reduced. So it seems they want players using that pistol to have a little bit less Halo 1 kind of accuracy and power, and a bit more close range, it seems. If they, less damage, not going to 3 or 4 tap somebody, and they're going to make people scope in to kind of hit those shots. Next up, the Devotion.
Apex is a little bit more,
not
willy-nilly, but like Apex updates the game a lot more frequently, just to change play patterns and stuff like that. But the wingman was like really, really strong for quite a while. Like it's been dominant multiple times over the course of the game's history. So it's no surprise to see it getting nerfed.
Right. It's been one of those old trusty guns, especially if you get the bad drop or the unlucky sort of loot box situation where you're not getting like a preferred weapon. A wingman is still a lethal option, but it's kind of like a standard issue lethal option. And like that kind of, goes to what we were saying before. I'd be interested in seeing if they'd let you drop with like something standard, like a wingman. Everybody gets one, just like everyone starts with a little bit of armor that you upgrade as you progress. Maybe you start with a wingman, like a basic low damage wingman or something. And I know that might be a controversial take, but it'd be interesting to see the discussion on that and the thoughts with it, because it might increase competitive integrity in that manner. But unless you have something to contribute on there, Nick, I'm going to move on to the next patch notes for it.
Nothing.
Okay. All right. Next up, we saw the Devotion new reverse hipfire. Sustained hipfire will tighten accuracy. So this is a change where they want you to not ADR ADS, down scope. They don't want you looking down scope to fire this. They want a more sustained hip fire, just quick run and gun kind of thing. Damage was increased and magazine size was also increased, which makes sense because I believe Devotion, if I recall correctly, Nick, it's more of an assault rifle. Maybe not.
Yeah, the Devotion was more of an assault rifle for that one.
All right, so they seem to be leaning into that, giving it a little bit more punching power overall. They also changed the reserve ammo. I'm assuming they went up. So basically, I guess the clips you can have on hand and use for it. Empty reload time significantly reduced. Seems like we're going to be entering a Devotion meta on this one with sustained hip.
The Devotion was 1 point.
I'm sorry, what was that, Nick?
The Devotion was a little strong at 1 point, but again, I haven't kept up on the game recently.
Gotcha. And I think they're going to be shifting it back a little bit. Maybe they were seeing a downplay in that. Like a lot of these developers, they'll look at the stats of how many they're using and general sentiment by the community, because sometimes there's like a feel. Just really quickly on that too, like I telling a story. I'm not sure which game it was, but basically they had 2 weapons. I think it was actually Destiny 2. So I think there's a game, one of the devs in Destiny 2 talked about this where they had a shotgun and the sound it made was very beefy, very like, ooh, yeah. And as you know, every season comes pretty quickly in Destiny and they offer a lot of new weapons, but sometimes those new weapons are pretty straightforward and kind of copies of old ones that get cycled out. So over time, a new weapon emerged that was almost a copy and paste of that shotgun the developer was talking about. But the biggest thing is that they had changed the way you shot it. Like you still, pressed fire 1 primary fire to shoot it, but like the way it felt, the way you scoped or the way the sights of the gun looked, it created this experience for players where players would like swear, man, this gun stinks. It's the worst. It doesn't do enough. And like, especially because it was a similar type of weapon, pretty much a copy and paste of the previous weapon, they would compare it to that previous weapon. But the dev told the story where it's like, it's exactly the same, except the sound is different. So it's a very interesting psychology trend when you talk about something like that, where a weapon can be numerically the same, but the skin will look different, the animation fire will look different, the sight will look different, and then even the firing sound will sound different, sound bigger or beefier, and like that can impact how somebody feels about the weapon. The weapon could be total trash, but then it sounds good, and then people are like, yeah, I'm doing something. Like, yeah, this is doing a lot. So kind of an interesting thing, and I wonder how much it impacts the balance changes for an Apex here or the competitiveness around it, where people choose the meta, choose how they want to play, choose the strategy of play and style. Nick, how you doing? I haven't heard you in a couple seconds, but I want to make sure you're still here with us and good.
I think I'm better now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and you do sound pretty better. Are you in a spot where we can try to bring you in on the video camera?
Sure. Let's see how it looks.
All right. I'm going to put us into a brief pause real quick and mute the stream, and we'll give that a shot. So 1 second. We'll be right back. Mute broadcast. All right, I just need you to pop your camera on. There we go. Okay, studio mode. Let me make sure you look fine. I can't show you yourself, but you're a little bit to your left and a little bit low. I don't know if it's zoomed in, but as far as the box is concerned right now, I need you to move to your right about 2 inches. Yeah, there. And then either kind of get closer or kind of tilt the camera down about 2 inches. There's a lot of head space and I don't see your chin. So I need the... Yeah, same thing. So I'm in the wide shot and it's literally just your face. I'm not seeing your shoulders or your neck. No, nothing changed on my screen. What are you using, the C920 or the Brio? Sorry, you're using the Brio, okay. No, that made it worse. That made it zoomed in more. Oh, that's better. But I'm gonna have to do some adjusting on the outside here. Alright, don't touch anything else, you're fine. Let me just triple check the other scenes real quick. There's a Nick scene, there's a double scene. Alright, you in a comfortable spot? Alright, I'm locking you in and then we're gonna get back. Alright, let me get studio mode off. I'm gonna unmute this in a second. All right, I think we should be back. Let me just make sure. All right, Nick, can you hear me? All right, let me bring us back into the scene and get your pretty face on stream. There we go. All right, technical crisis a little bit averted, but we're back into it. We're back into the swing of things, and we're just talking about the patch notes here with Apex results. I'm going to bring us back into that in just a moment. There we go. Perfect. Okay. I mean, it might just be the internet kind of cutting in out, but it is what it is, and we're just going to keep working on this. Back into the results here, and here we are. All right, like we said, we're hitting Reject Winity, $300,000 prize pool, first place, $160,000 for Dark Zero Esports, $105,000 for Fnatic, and Moist Critical and Ludwig's team pulling out $85,000 with Not Moist, fourth place. Pretty solid results amid going into now these patch notes, and the website's a little scuffed to the side, but you know, it is what it is. I'm not sure I can really do anything. Change that. Nah. Gets a little weird, but okay. We were just talking about the wingman being nerfed. It seems that the hip fire is being projectiles being reduced, and then the hip fires were being reduced, and no longer magazine attachments. So it seems they're going to move away from a wingman sort of meta into a little bit of a devotion meta. Sustained hip fire will tighten accuracy. They're increasing damage and they're increasing mag size. as well as empty time reload. So that's pretty nice. They're bringing in different golden weapons, guaranteed out of loot bins, which is another thing we were just talking about. When there's less chance and more skill, kind of like you can create more skill moments. You can create more knowledge moments. Bit of attachments. We're going to just kind of move through this quick because it seems like they're just getting rid of a lot of things on the longbow here. Mm-hmm. Okay. Kind of insane if that's the case. Microphone, speakers. No, I want that to be. Apologies. Got to change you into. There we go. And there we go. Okay. So now I think you should be a little bit better suited. Give us a little talk. No, I can't hear you. So many wild little changes. Talk a little bit real quick.
Running, shooting, punching, reviving will all break
Gotcha.
out of the banner collect animation while still registering as successful, which is great.
That's really cool to hear and see as far as the game goes, right? Because that's such a sitting duck time, so it's going to give you more opportunity to revive teammates, right?
Well, it's more about like when you're trying to recover after doing a successful team fight, right? And you get like third partied, or it's the second or third party that's like entering, right? Or if it's a bigger fight and you need to like pick up a banner, get into a box, and then someone starts shooting at you. Excuse me, and you need to just shoot or something along those lines, right? Or just start running, stuff like that while you're trying to collect them. So
True. You can be a little bit more stand and defend now with this, and hopefully maybe actually just grab your guy and go.
Mm-hmm.
Cool to see.
Cool
To see. All right. Well, I think that's enough of Apex. And I think Apex served us as a little bit of the transition here. So let's move back into our double cam as we get ready for our next topic. Nick, any final thoughts on the Apex stuff before we move on?
Apex is always just a fun, chill game. Everybody should play it if they haven't.
Right, and it seems to be a pretty lucrative esport as well. They manage to balance patches pretty well. There's a lot of competitive integrity. They keep a mindset with quick changes, quick updates, and it might not always be the way the players want it to go, but it is something they're open to, player suggestions, and they're going to have a quick turnaround. So even though the meta might be this way for now, it's only going to be that way for a week or two. And finally, the little point on that is like, that's some pretty nifty prize pools if you're getting top of the top here. So a lot of room for growth, a big ceiling for competition, and really just engaging players who want to be at that level and compete for money. But, we got to move into our next topic. And Nick, I'm going to leave it to you because we're having a little bit of a rough go about it this episode. But I want you to pick. We're going to talk about either Riot, Vanguard, anti-software, or we want to hop right into mid-season invitational recap and setup.
So, we can talk about Riot Vanguard first. Right? Riot Vanguard's probably like just a simpler, easier topic to just go into real quick. One of the things about Riot Vanguard is this new anti-cheat, right? And a lot of players have had to install it because we just had a patch over the last week. And so it's now been enabled on every single region and everything like that.
Right. Let me jump in real quick on that too, because it's something that has existed for Valorant players for a while, right? But now League of Legends players have had to adopt it more recently, and that's where this is stemming from, correct?
Yes. It's interesting that the problem that popped up did not pop up for Vanguard players, I guess. And so like, this is the interesting part, right? Is that Vanguard apparently, after doing the patch, a lot of people were saying that it was bricking their systems, a lot of, not able to play League, or they're not even able to start their PCs and stuff like that. And it turns out, there is a small percentage of the player base that is negatively impacted by Vanguard, but a majority of cases are apparently just due to old hardware that they have that they're not really like prepared for, or people bypassing hardware requirements that were initially part of Windows 11, then were taken away for a little bit, but are still like, this is something that you're still affected by if you bypass these hardware requirements when they were no longer deemed necessary by Microsoft. But all the developers that developed all their programs, security programs, bootloaders, like whatever you want to call it, these guys have all developed for a certain requirement for Windows 11. Some people bypass this, and unfortunately now they're getting negatively impacted by things that were basically made for people who did not bypass the requirements, and that's a majority of people who are getting hit for this.
Yeah, just to kind of further go into it, I'm going to bring us up on an article to kind of dive in. And like you said, it was a really well explained, very concise narrative of what's happening, what's going on. The controversy is really that League of Legends players in this 14-year-old game, 13-year-old game, have to now use this anti-cheat software, which is kernel level, and it requires access to a specific high-end or newer hardware. And League of Legends is an older game which with lower requirements, so there's a bit of a disconnect in that, which is what you're saying. Rolling down on this article here, which also does a great job at going more in depth on it, Vanguard is a kernel mode driver that boots up when you run the PC. The client checks to make sure you're not running anti-cheat software while you're playing Valorant, which is originally where and what it was used for. Now it's used across all of Riot's games, League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics, etc. One of the controversial things with kernel level is that proponents of them say that you need kernel level because that's where the hackers are operating outside of security software, antivirus, etc. So to meet them at their arms race, they also need access to that. But kernel level, as described by people who are hesitant for it or against them, is that it has complete access to everything on your computer, and it's unnecessary for you to detect those anti-cheats, those cheating software. So like that's a bit of the background for kernel level there. But Nick, you wanted to jump in real quick on that?
Well, I was just thinking like, nobody really had problems with other, I don't want to say versions of Vanguard, but other anti-cheat softwares that are also kernel level. They didn't have the same breaking effects, and it's because they're made for, like, they don't have this TPM 2.0 requirement that is, hindering some people's PCs, or,
right.
It's just you upgraded too soon because you're like in the, like, I don't want to be a jerk and say, like, in the words of Pokemon, just say you a broke boy. Like, it's all good. Like, we all have bad computers, right? But no, like, my computer's not too good. I have a 1070 Ti, right? Like, that's like 10 years ago graphic card, right? But like, you just upgraded to Windows 11 a little bit too soon. That's pretty, like, a good portion of people did that. And
yeah. And I know Windows 11 did push a hardware change along with the software change. But I wonder, like you said, how many people just circumvented that on the bootleg level. Here's just a quick diagram of where kernel operates on as far as privilege. They literally have full access to everything, which is the same place where hackers or cheaters are going to want to operate at, so that they don't have to like worry about like, being stopped or anything. But as we saw, and a little bit of a counterpoint to that, the kernel level and the upgrading and other software not really having that problem. A couple months ago, we had Apex Legends get hacked potentially because of their easy anti-cheat. It was never disclosed what was really the cause, if it was Apex software or if it was easy anti-cheat. There was a lot of controversy between the two. But that's another kernel level software. And if it's not easy anti-cheat that's doing it, it was Apex access to it, perhaps. And we don't know a lot about that still. They've been very, rightfully so, very quiet about that situation. But like, that's another kind of point to this stuff where you're talking about other programs not having this problem because they have a lower bar of entry, probably because they were built on Windows 10, whereas this one was built on Windows 11, expecting the TPM 2.0. But like, I guess in that way too, while we're at it, let's just kind of like really directly say, like, your system will not be bricked if you're running an appropriate version of Windows 11 and have the TPM 2.0 protocol on your device, on your hardware, your BIOS, I believe it is. Then just have to say that flat out straight to you. Nick, is there anything you want to add to that like sort of statement about players who are complaining falsely about this problem?
I don't have TPM 2.0.
You don't?
I played League this morning. So just to give you an example, it's on you. It's not on them. Like, for the most part, there are a small percentage of these people, but like I still have Windows 10. When they said like, "Hey, do you want to upgrade to Windows 11?" I said no. Why do I need to upgrade to Windows 11? You just came out with that buggy thing. I don't want to beta test for you, Microsoft. And a lot of people said, you know what? Maybe I want to go. Like, it's the new thing, So maybe they just did it for that. There was a lot of pressure from Windows to go from 10 to 11, and especially with hardware. I ended up buying a new PC, and that came with Windows 11, so I had to upgrade. Is what it is, but I also didn't need to worry about it because then I'm operating a TPM 2.0. I'm not operating a motherboard from 20 years ago with TPM 1. 20 years ago. Mean. It's like you got two, I mean, honestly, I think my motherboard probably does have 2.0, but I just haven't bothered upgrading the Windows 11, so it just really doesn't affect me.
Right. And I'm sure if players want to double check if they have TPM 2.0, if you Google a quick search of what hardware, what BIOS you're using, they'll be able to give you quick instructions, detailed instructions on how to do that. But more or less, it's not Vanguard that's bricking your system. It's the hardware incongruencies. And if anything, a little bit better communication from Riot and a little bit better matching of hardware to software requirements from League to Vanguard would have been better communicated. But ultimately, yeah, it's just down to system requirements and what you're using on your system.
Again, like these is pretty. The people who are experiencing this, they're pretty unique overall. League is 15 years old. There are people like you can play this game on a very old computer and have it function fine. The graphics aren't going to be great, but you can have it function and be relatively playable for a lot of older computers. A lot of really junky laptops can run this game as long as the processor's doing fine. Not to say, the game isn't that good. Like, like Doom was just put onto a cell, by the way, in case you didn't know this.
I saw that. That was cool.
It's not on the level of Doom yet, but, it's a pretty simple game for a lot of PCs to run. The people who are experiencing this, like, they're so unique in the situation. It's a perfect storm of just nonsense for the most part. This coming out in order to help against cheaters, and I'm not even sure if this is like also to try to combat like a lot of the stuff that certain hackers and stuff are targeting certain players and stuff like that, if they're DDoSing them on purpose and stuff like that. I'm not sure if this is like a helpful way to possibly track these bad actors or something along those lines. Like if they get hit, like I don't know how it all works, but this came out relatively quickly on League, and after we had a lot of stuff going on in Korea for them getting DDoSed, them getting a couple hacks.
Right.
So.
It's also coming out right before MSI, and like you said, like League is a game that League is a game that kind of prides itself as being accessible to many because of the low requirements, system requirements. Even back 10, 15 years ago when it came out, it really didn't need a lot of system to like play. And like, I'm an old hat, so I remember playing World of Warcraft on a dial-up modem, 56.6K, kind of like just flashing, rubber banding around Ironforge. And like League was always kind of been that same mentality where it's like we've built on a system, a foundation that your system requirements don't have to be really high to just make it happen. You could be playing on a dial-up. But now, as modernization is happening, we're seeing those pain points.
Yeah, they're upgrading. I don't know if they're going to upgrade their spaghetti, but their code potentially will get a little bit better. The game is getting upgraded, and this is 100% a true story. When I first started to play League, I could not actually play the game properly. My computer would freeze at 100%, just freeze on one frame for a good minute and a half every time more than one character was on the screen in a 10-person match. All right? And so I had to play a specific champion that her name is Natalie, and she threw spears from really, really far away. And so that's the only champion. Like, I love that champion because I was able to play it in my game and still like do stuff. But I literally couldn't have like one more person on the screen with me at the same time. Otherwise, it would freeze and I would die.
That's wild. That's wild that was a thing and that you persisted. You found a solution where you're just going to play a long shot, skill shot character from afar and there's not have any other character on screen. You're effectively playing a solo Rambo game.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun. But things happen. You get better computers, and then you get to actually play the game. But that's literally like that's just to show you like the hardware is not like really a limiting factor because I was able to play without actually having characters on the screen. I didn't win much, but I played.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of winning, I think that's a good segment to move us into the tournament for MSI League of Legends Midseason Invitational. We're gonna do a bit of a recap. So let's bring up the first off the format of this situation. It happened this past weekend from the 1st to the 5th. If you watched this previous week, we made some predictions. We got you all set up. That's what we like to do here. Give you an expectation. Give you a little bit of information, what to know, what to look for, etc. There's two different stages in this part. There's the play-in stage and then there's the bracket stage. This past weekend was the play-in stage. Teams had to fight to get in and then fight to stay in right now because not all of them can be here. And that's what we saw. It was a top 2 teams qualified into the bracket and the rest got knocked out. So running us down to the play-in bracket view, it was let's go with the prettier one actually. Let it load in and here we are. This was a bit of the results from this weekend. This is the top part of the play-ins. FlyQuest over PSG in round 1. T1 over Estral Esports with a 2-0. Pretty dominant. Any thoughts or comments here, Nick, with this part of the tournament? Hold on one second. I think you're muted.
This is I was muted. I muted myself because I sneezed. This is where the moment where I think we should just cut and clip exactly what I said last week, which was like, it's really not fair for any of those guys to like really be facing Team 1, even with their like the hindrance that Team 1 had, which was not too much practice. But now they're in China. They're on the Chinese super server. China does not play around, guys. Like they will.
Seriously,
China. Okay. Activision Blizzard kind of kowtows to China. They're pretty powerful. No one's really going to mess around and try to really hack a lot of people. And I haven't heard much stories just in general. So Faker's been playing solo queue and stuff like that. But there's a really, really funny, I forgot to actually get this clip for you, but there's a pretty funny, it's not really trash talk, but it's some banter between 2 players of FlyQuest before they faced T1. And they kind of like they're European, so they kind of like they kind of rip off the cuff a little bit more when they even speak to each other. It was Jensen and Inspired, I think. And basically, the interesting thing was that they kind of like gave each other a little bit of crap on stage, like throw a little bit of drama, and then they were asked, like, you know, what are you guys thinking about tomorrow when you guys face Faker for the thing? And like Inspired just goes like, it's fucking Faker, man. Like, we're not winning that. It's fucking funny. So it was super funny, but like they really weren't prepared. The beginning of the match, like the five that I want to give them 10 minutes. But it's probably not fair if I give them 10 minutes. Probably like the first 5 minutes of the match like weren't too crazy for FlyQuest. Astral eSports game was like more fun than the FlyQuest T1 game. But like it just like T1 isn't really able to capitalize on a lot of mistakes. So, like. And when you make, this is what I was saying, like their snap decision making last week, like when I was just like, you know, they just snap decision makers, right? Like they're just going to do it. Like as soon as they see like this is happening, like they're just doing it and they just press them really, really hard. They didn't really slow the game down. And a lot of teams don't really do this. Like a lot of teams really have a hard time slowing the game down. And it's probably because their coaches aren't on stage and they're all personalities. So they all have like an equal role in the team. And unlike T1, right, or like other teams that are in this tournament, like no one is going to tell Faker to be quiet. At his point, doesn't matter, right? Like no one's going to tell. Like Kyria has not been playing professionally as long, but Kyria is an extremely good support. No one is going to say like no one's going to that level of respect where they can actually meld and stuff like that. Like FlyQuest is 5 people who are individually good players that probably should be on different teams. They just don't play well together for the most part. And they think a little bit differently about the game. So that's probably why they just ended up losing.
Well, it couldn't have been anything to do with our predictions last week and all, but I know T1 is a super strong team. And like we've talked about some of the highlights previously, even in a losing game, out of nowhere, Faker has the capacity to just 4K like somebody. So like a losing fight and a losing team win just a 2v4. Otherwise, you know, like that's the thing about superstars and like legends like a Faker. They really demand a lot more out of their teammates to respect them, to just kind of be there. So like even if they're not the Faker and the focus, they're still probably doing a lot of micro plays where like Faker is lifting everybody on the team up with his knowledge, experience, but also creating opportunities for them to create value and opportunity for him.
Yeah, I mean Faker's always solid. He's a really solid player, and he always plays for lane for the most part. Like he really plays for lane. He ganks. He'll go to like side lanes and stuff, but like Faker plays for lane. It's how you win the game. You get more gold, you get their objective, you bust open mid, and then you have more vision on the map. It becomes a lot scarier for that mid laner. But the FlyQuest has some they have really solid players. Like Blippo is not a bad player, right? But he's probably a bad player when he plays with Jensen and Inspired, because in these matches he literally took fights that he shouldn't have. They would literally get a kill, and this is like something that I feel like North America just doesn't do, and it frustrates me to hell in like solo queue. Is just the reset. Like just reset. Like stop.
Yeah.
Don't try to eat all the cake. Like this is all I can say. Like stop trying to eat all the fucking cake, guys. Like just get one slice, go eat it, come back for seconds once you digest it a little bit, okay? Like stop trying to eat the whole damn cake. And that's all they did. Like that's what FlyQuest did. They got like one advantage, and then they all just go crazy and flash in, or one person flashes in, dies. And then the rest of them just they all start playing Overwatch right out of spawn, like one by one. They're just lemmings and just walking out. And that's kind of like what happened with them. but like
Gotcha.
they just shouldn't be on the same team together. Like some of those players can play together, but
Yeah, and I know we've talked about them in the previous tournament. The what is it? The major one, I think it was. They had a really strong start, but I guess the timing or the gap of games and play, they kind of just get boomed. They get rolled later on. They've already punched their ticket to MSI here, but then like they're just kind of checked out. So like, I'm sure this is a bit of the same. They're looking at down the barrel of T1 and Faker, and they're just like, yeah, okay, never mind, we're good. See you, bye.
well, so like here's what happens, right? Like I personally think that like if you look at, let me see, if we were to like, I don't think I can actually do that. LCS, yeah, here we go, right? So if we look at like the regular season, right? They're 10-4 for like the regular season. This mentality that I'm about to explain, like I think really happens a lot with these players. Like they're all good players, right? They come together, they're winning games, they're not really losing, and then they lose. And now they're starting to disagree because before they were like melding. They're like, all right, we're winning, guys. Everything's going great. We don't even need to talk about this. And then they lose. And now they need to talk. And now they realize like all five of them have like a different way to play the game. And they don't really agree with one another. And like, you can see it when Inspired and Jensen speak. Like they're not like mean about it or like, you know, some would say that they're mean because they use like certain words that we don't use. But that being said, like they're pretty communicative, but they really just don't see the game the exact same way. So they see that there's something to do in a situation, but they're both taking a separate road. And there could be like 10 roads in that situation that you can take.
Right.
But if you're not taking the same one, then like, what's the point? Like it's, go ahead.
No, as I say, and those moments require decisive action. Even if it's the wrong decision, as long as you decide together and work cohesively, you might be able to make magic. And you could always get better at what. Yeah, you could always get better at figuring out what the right decision ends up being. But like, here's that tournament from the end of the season, or sorry, Major 1. They're looking dominant, 3-2 over Team Liquid, 3-0 over Cloud9. And then they get over to the finals, and they just get boomed by Team Liquid Honda. You know, so that's like a lot of what we were looking at previously with FlyQuest. They have the sauce, but they don't know how. And like, it's interesting when you say they kind of like run in like lemmings. They're not working together. Do you feel that's a player level where they're just not like listening to each other or communicating properly? Do you think it's a coach level? Because I know in hockey, it roughly takes about 100 games for a team to like fully meld together, cohesive naturally. And there's only 80 games in a season. So like you're talking about like a season and like a little bit for an NHL team to like roughly coalesce perfectly like that, where they can read the teammates' minds and really get on the same page in that way. So is that something, you know, you see this happening with FlyQuest, or is it just like, nah, we need different personnel?
So I do think that overall, like they need new personnel for like the team. That's just switching the players around. Like these are all good pro players. They just need to be put with other players. Like, and the reason why I say this is like a prime example of this exact thing happening. If you look at Faker and all of his world record, all of his like world championships, look at T1 world championships if you could pull that up, and the teams for it, like T1 world champs. Well, right. If you look at like, so we have 4 of them, right? Let's see if we can find their teams, right? See if we can find their players. So this is like their current roster and stuff like that. I don't think they're actually going to have it. Unfortunate as it is. And the reason why I bring this up, right, is because a lot of the first championships that they got, right, were with Bengi, right? Like his. Okay. Let me see. Like he has 3 world championships. All right. Bengi himself, right? He was on T1. He's retired as a player. He's now a coach, right? Okay. And so I think like, let me see if I could find it, because it was like they were called SK Telecom T1. Yeah. When that was like happening, and trying to. So they won. Then T1 stopped winning, basically, and Bengi retired. Like he just wasn't playing, right? Like he didn't want to play anymore or something like that. He just wanted to relax. And I'm not even joking with you. The very next time, like they just brought him back, and they are such a good meld together. Like these two players. It doesn't mean that like Faker is the GOAT, right? And I'm not saying that Bengi isn't like the same, but like if you look at the last bunch of matches, he was not up to like pro player. Like I don't want to say like he wasn't the best person on the team. He probably was not like middle of the road when they were winning their last matches with with like it was the
right.
What year was that? 2016, I want to say. I think it was like 2016. Might have been the last, like, I think that's when it was, right? So like I believe 2016 as when where they brought him in, where they were swapping out junglers, swapping out mid laners a little bit, but every single time that they combined those two players, it just worked. It was just magic. And like, I think a lot of League in general ends up being like, not really like how good certain players are, but how great they work together rather than everything else.
Right, and like that's the same with any sort of team sport, not to be like reductive in that, but like you're right. We're looking at the forest, not just the trees. You can have a really strong player like Faker, but you can't rely on one person winning the game. You need a team effort. You need a cohesive thing. And that's something that it seems that FlyQuest has struggled with here, especially they did take a win in the first round against PSG, but then just to kind of move us forward a little bit in this, talking about this bracket recap here, they go to round 3 here and like they get 2-0'd by PSG. So like they're just boomed again. So like it's a weak mental if it's just bad situation and timing or whatever. It is what it is. In that same regard, you're talking about FlyQuest playing here in North America, now going against a lot of Chinese teams, international teams. They're seeing a lot of looks that they wouldn't normally see during the season, their regular season, a lot of the months that they've been playing. So they might have been top dogs throughout the year, but now they get boomed by Team Liquid in their own like division or league tournament, and then they make it to MSI, and they look like they're just getting boomed on the second half of the play-ins here.
It's because they argue too much. Like, there's too many like I don't want it to be like mean, but like I would.
You think it's a tilting issue, like a frustration tilting issue?
I think that there's. I think in the U.S. and potentially in Europe, there is respect is earned and not given. Whereas like I'm 100% positive that if you show up day one on T1 and you start not respecting the coach, you're gonna be put in your place. Like, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen on other teams, but it really seems like a lot of these American teams, like they're just arguing, like, and then they just do whatever they want. Like it looks like on the FlyQuest games against T1, like Blippo was saying, like, let's go in, and then everybody else like either sits back or they can't go in because of something that happens and Blippo didn't pay attention to it or something along those lines, right?
And their teammate's not communicating it. And their team's not communicating to Blippo, hey, no, we can't. We're not able to.
Yeah, or he's just not listening. Or he's literally saying, like, just, like, let's go. And then, that's, like, I don't have any inside information, but, like, that's the way that I think a lot of behaviors exist in, like, League or even other games. Like, if someone who wants to, thinks they know exactly how to win the game and doesn't want to like lose the game or something, right?
Right. That's kind of interesting because there's a couple podcasts like the Unculturable podcast for Overwatch. It's a bunch of former Overwatch League coaches bringing on guests and insiders that talk about this. And they brought on one of the fan favorites and the best teams of the Overwatch League last year, Overwatch Season 6, the Atlanta Reign. It was a very Korean-dominated team. I think all the players except for Hawk were from Korea. And the coach Gator would talk about the culture there and like the key differences, like the pros and the cons, a little bit what you're talking about, where like North America might have this mentality of friction and respect is earned, but they also seem to, like, at least from the Overwatch perspective, they also seem to be more open and welcoming to like teamwork and workmanship. Whereas like a lot of his commentary was that the Korean players' culture was, you need to fucking do better. Oh, you're the young blood, you're shit. And like the literal tank on the Orlando Rain won Rookie of the Year, carried them through an impeccable season. They apparently wouldn't celebrate winning. They were just like relieved. So like, it's interesting that way, because I wonder if it's too much one way or too much the other. It creates a dissonance in like teamwork. It creates a dissonance in skill and a capacity. Let me say that again. It creates a dissonance in skill and capacity because it's hard. It's a big harp on one player's shoulders. You're the one reason we messed up. You need to do better. And if you have like a faker on there, the faker is going to be the star. He's going to make those moves, but he can't be there shitting on the other teammates either. And I wonder if that's happening with FlyQuest, where it's like, no, you fucked up. You weren't supposed to go in. We couldn't go in. And then it just devolves further.
Listen to Inspired and Jensen talk. Like, I'll send you the clip later. But like,
right.
they just have completely different thoughts in the same moment. One of them saying you can do this, and he's like, I can't do this if the jungler is always there and I don't get any help. It's unplayable. And it's because they all play different roles. They just play different roles. They play different roles, and I think they should all be able to play the roles, but they don't act like all the roles have the same value. So like a lot of like, if you ask challenger players, if you ask pros, what's the most important role? They'll probably say like, depending on the season, they'll be like, what season? Or something along those lines. But then they'll just say like jungle. Or if they're a jungler, they'll probably say support. And it's because like the jungler ganks people. So like if you lose lane because the jungler ganked you, so the jungler is the most important role. Yeah. Right? Or the support ganks you, or the support sets up wards and stuff like that. Like they all matter.
Yeah.
They all have their roles to play and stuff like that, right? Like,
and they all can create space and value.
Game. Exactly.
Yeah, team game.
And like, just a team game. And like, just because you think you should have did this in a certain point, you know, that's a valid point. But then again, like, you're not the boss in the game. And maybe that's an issue. Right. That there is no boss in the game. And I said this before, right? That I think the coaches should be on stage talking to their players and stuff. But
well, that's that question, is sort of a leading question, because it's like you need to define what one role is the most important role. Like it's asking you to do that, so like you're gonna want to oblige by it. But that's also like probably the same space that those players' mindsets in, where it isn't like the real answer is it's a team game, and it's going to push and pull at any different point. The player that can create the most value is the player that's the most important. The role that's the most important. And then we had talked about this off camera before with League and maybe even Overwatch, like in comp or something, where it's like you might even want to elect a captain for your team and have that, because it really just sounds like when we're talking here, the comms for FlyQuest, there's no trust in it. There's no, I'm going to trust you to make a play here. I'm going to push through, even though I don't think it's a good idea. And if it doesn't work, we'll try it my way next time. There's no leeway in forgiveness. There's no leeway in trust. And like, it might have been burnt over time. They might have just fucked it up, to put it simply, like over time. And that might be where we need the personnel change. But, we're harping a lot on FlyQuest here. It seemed to be a big topic. I saw articles about FlyQuest just shit in the bed this weekend.
It's so mean, man. So mean.
But it is the biggest narrative. Yeah. I think it's the biggest narrative because everything else went exactly how you expect it to. And then, and speaking of that, like, just kind of cover the bottom half, the other side of the bracket here. We had Fnatic take a 2-0 over GAM eSports. Top eSports 2-0 Loud. We're seeing a lot of 2-0s over here, which I didn't think we would have, except for Top. Top over Fnatic. Fnatic was able to take a round off of top esports, which is pretty nice to see. But it seemed like just pretty much standard fare and what we expect. Gam over Loud here, and then the Fnatic and Gam match 2-0 here. Fnatic beats them out. So, your thoughts with this part of the bracket, Nick?
It played out pretty. I think I could go back to what I said and say, like, I think it came out pretty close to what I said it was going to be. Like, I didn't know how well Fnatic, Gam, or Loud were actually going to do.
Right.
But Fnatic played way better than I thought they were going to. Like, based on like a couple of the things that I saw in them, like I thought I didn't think they were going to play as well. June, the support played out of his mind. There was a couple things where, like, to give you an example with like really no context whatsoever, in a situation, there were multiple situations where he was caught, or at least in bad position, where it just ended up being like, oh, he's just doing June stuff, man. Like he's just oh, he's caught. Oh no, he's not caught actually. Rah! He would it felt like he was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like he was just playing trap cards the whole entire time.
You have fallen to my trap card, Yugi.
It was pretty intense. Like Humanoid played pretty well in some areas. Like I think Humanoid kind of gave inted in some parts. I thought Noah played pretty well. He played really well compared to what I thought he was going to play. Razork. So yeah, no, I'm just playing. He did some cool stuff, but as I said, I think Tess is is probably like one of the best, like the best team. I think they're better than Genji maybe, but it's a tie. I'm probably wrong.
Right. And like this is an interesting point because the players you're focusing on and you're talking about here, we almost have a tale of two teams here, right? We were talking about FlyQuest a second ago and how much, we would have wished we saw from them. And in a similar situation, you've got Fnatic. They 2-0 the first round and then they go up against top esports, which is an expected loss, generally speaking. But they're fighting in a way and they're able to make a round win happen and then not get mentally boomed about it and then end up winning out in round 3 down here against GAM eSports. So you've got players maybe with strategy or different mentals and capacity. It's like really is a tale of two teams. Comparing and contrasting the two, it's hard not to because they both almost had similar journeys and one took it a lot better than the other.
Yeah. But Fnatic played really well and FlyQuest didn't, right? GAM eSports, I would like to see them play more, but they are out.
They're out. They're done for now.
This happens in Worlds, and this is probably the worst part about being a League of Legends fan, is because when you watch Worlds, there will literally be situations where you're like, I really just want that. This was a really good set. This was a really good match. I want both of these teams to continue and fight other people because it'll give me more good matches, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just the game is out, but
yeah, I was going to say that's just the nature of competitive sports. Sometimes you fall in love with a team, the way they play, the style, the personalities. They put up a good competition. They make a fun game to watch, and then they just can't push it through. But which region are they from, Nick?
That's Vietnam, I believe. I believe GAM eSports is Vietnam. Give me one second.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I found it real quick.
Yeah.
Can't see it on the screen. It is in Vietnam. So maybe we'll see more of them in the second half of the season and the other international tournaments on the back end here. But it is a team that, we're going to keep an eye out for, look after a bit more.
And personally, I think they should get so if one of these non-core regions made it to the finals, and I believe if they got second place, they would get an additional slot for Worlds.
Right. I mean, that makes sense.
I think NA should lose a spot for what happened. But no, I really want to see Gam play more, and it would be really, really cool if we could get somebody else besides like Gam there too, just to see if like it's not unique to them or anything. Yeah, because I just enjoyed really seeing Easy Love tear up. That was it was fun.
Right. Well, there's a lot more games to look forward to. This is only the first weekend. We have the bracket stage where it's for all the money.
Hold on, we have one result there.
We do have one result from this morning because it literally started today. But I'm going to bring us over into the format real quick and run us down. That officially started today, May 7th. Is going to run to the 12th. And then the finals are going to be the 14th and the 19th. And that's when they're going to wrap everything up. There's 8 teams in a double elimination bracket. And it's a best of 5 series. We did have one result already happen today. I believe it was Team Liquid versus Top Esports. And drum roll, surprise, Top Esports coming out over our NA fun favorites, Team Liquid E Honda over there. I'm gonna bring us to the better view here, but go ahead.
Now. Look at the brackets. If you look at the brackets, look how scuffed the brackets are, right?
What do you mean by scuffed here, Nick?
Because the team that is going to win is painfully obvious. It is painfully obvious, and like I really hope it isn't, but Genji's gonna win. Bibly. I can't ever say. Billy is gonna win. There is no doubt that they are gonna win. T1 is gonna win, and so it's then we're gonna get into. Then it's gonna be first and second seed, right? First and second seed, second seed from China and first seed from Korea with Genji versus Tess. And then it will be first seed from one region and second seed from the other. It's literally just 2 regions fighting each other and then getting into the finals.
Well, do you feel like this is a seeding issue? I'm gonna bring us back into Liquipedia because it's a little bit easier to see the full bracket. Do you feel like this is a seeding issue where like number 1 team is playing number 8, or like it's just like a randomness, like because like I see what you see where basically Top Esports is gonna go off over here, T1 is gonna go off on the bottom side of this bracket, and then oh wow, they're gonna go into the upper bracket finals, and then one of them is gonna go to the lower bracket and then come back into the grand finals. Who would have thought that was gonna happen? So like, it does seem like there's going to be more excitement happening in the lower bracket, but do you feel like that's a seeding issue or a region issue?
That one I can't really be sure on, right? Because it's going to be. I'm at a
loss for words too here because it's like not enough information to really know what's happening and if it's happening on purpose. Like they're saving the best matches for the end, like the guaranteed like top number 1 and number 2.
I don't think they're doing that. I think a lot of North America is not a bad region, right? Like it doesn't matter. We have too many world champions in this region, like. It's fucking crazy that people still say like NA. Like we literally have so many solid like League of Legends champions. We have so many Koreans that are like solid players. Like we have, because people will just say, Korea, China, how are you gonna beat them, right? And it's like, the inspired jokes like it's Faker. Like how are we gonna fucking beat Faker, right? But like we have so many solid players. Oh, that sounds weird. We have so many solid players. The region itself isn't bad. I think the region itself suffers from not enough like shuffling to find what melds, because it's more about like the instant results. Whereas I think they'll probably search for players that meld a little bit better in like the other regions, but also like play styles come into factor for this. Like I just don't think like North America's really, their play style is not the same as other regions.
So here's a very basic question from my part, coming from more of an Overwatch and fighting game background myself. North American players will have a certain succinct meta that they play, that they gravitate to. Korean, Asian players have a different meta that they succinctly subscribe to. And same with Europe, right? So like in Overwatch, Asia region loves the dive. They love the Winston, the Diva. They love going in fast with Tracer and Genji, etc. North America loves the brawl comps, the Ram Rush, the Rhine Rush, like even a little bit of Malga now. But like, and then you've got EU and they love Rhine. They love Reinhardt, and that's a different brawl. And it's similar to North America, but it's just distinctly different enough where it's like, what's going to happen? Do you see the same thing happen in League with the character selection and the meta pick bans that way, or?
So like, yes and no. It doesn't change, like the overall power of the characters themselves, like doesn't really change.
Okay.
When you look at it like that, let me see if I can find something. So like if you were to go to like u.gg or something, these like the champ stats that are there, like the champions themselves will change like a little bit overall, but sometimes you won't see like much change just in general. They'll still be like, if they're still strong, they'll still be around the 53% win rate. 50, like if 55 is the high, like 55 will be the high most of the time. And then like if you're under 51.5, then you're probably not, then it's probably not as good.
Right. And I know that's like a lot of developers look at, like you're really talking about small percentages when like you're winning too much, one character's winning too much. It's usually overtuned, undertuned. It's like a 55 to 45 like kind of range. If you get even that far, they're messing with them to kind of give them get a little bit more reason to play. And that's kind of an interesting thing too, because I know it also depends on sentiment, player sentiment. Like if a champion is not picked except for by like one tricks and they're winning, they're going to have a super high win percentage with a low play rate, low pick rate. So like, yeah, like that makes this conversation a lot more in depth and interesting with talking about that.
Most of the time it just becomes like the big difference between regions in League are actually just from like, hold on a second.
What do you see?
That's good. No, I'm just looking at,
I thought you were having like a perfect mind moment where you're seeing through the numbers and just.
No, I did lose. You asked me, what do you see? And then you completely destroyed my thought because I saw a 77% win rate on a champion. And so I had to look, and it's like a 77% win rate out of 36 matches, but still.
Well, exactly.
Challenger level. So that's like kind of crazy.
Right. So do you feel like it's a big meta difference, and like maybe the Asia regions and for League of Legends has a better read on the meta, or you think it's like a meta versus meta where it's like rock versus paper? Not that one hard counters the other, but like an NA region hasn't quite figured out how to get around that completely cohesively.
So here's the thing about League pros and teams, that when they get on the stage, they're very stuck in their ways for their picks.
Okay.
And so they're going to pick their picks, even if they're not, even if they're like nerfed or something. Like sometimes, they'll play to the meta and stuff like that. But for the most part, there are combos or little things. Excuse me. Yeah. That people refuse to like drop, even when they're like not as good. Like, so right now, Lucian Nami isn't bad. Like, it's pretty good. But months, like in October when Worlds was going, like I can't even express to you how mad it was getting me that people were picking Lucian Nami because it wasn't good. But it's like a very safe pick, and there's reasons why you pick it. It's because Lucian has like the ability to trigger extra attacks after he does an ability, and Nami has the best DPS with that ability. Like, I can go into
a lot of synergy,
just not really like the point. They do get stuck in those situations. But the big difference between like North America, EU, and Korea, curse words. I'm just kidding. It's it's macro and micro. It's like it really just becomes that like.
Right. If I could jump in.
Give up.
If I could jump in really with a question too, sort of the thing you're talking about, is that strategy just like player specific where it's like, here's my 3 champions and everybody knows I play them, and and that's what kind of happens in fighting games. Even if the meta is shifting, like a specific player will have 3 champions roughly that they switch between to try to cover their journey so that they can try to win. Is it something like that, or is it like a coaching tactical strategy decided for the match? Like, okay, here's what we're going to try to play, here's what we're strong at, or is it like a kind of like an in-between? So what's your assessment on that without any sort of insider information, just kind of watching and reading?
So it depends on like the player themselves. Okay. Like, so, and if the champions that they're really good at are really good in the current meta, then they'll get picked up.
Okay.
And then they'll get banned. So like certain characters, there's 5 bans in League of Legends. There's 3 up front. Then there's picks for 3 characters, and then there's bans for 2. And then there's picks for 2 characters. And it trades off, and it goes 1 person picks, then 2 people pick, then 2 people pick. That goes like that, basically. But what the hell was I saying now?
The pick ban system.
Shit.
Like,
So like usually like there could be a player that could be targeted in that sense of like, we're just going to make his day, make his day terrible, put him on a champion that he's not really good at, counter pick the champion afterwards, and then try to win that way. But then again, you could also have a situation where like, I can't even remember, like Zeus was like right up until MSI. And right before MSI, like right before the finals for Korea, like Zeus, who's the top laner on SKT, he was like picking nothing but like Aatrox and like another champion. And like nobody banned Aatrox on him. And what did he do? He didn't pick Aatrox. He picked fucking TF for some reason. And then the game, like they end up losing the series. He picks like TF twice. And like, what are you doing picking TF? They didn't even ban your champion. It's just like stuff like that can happen. But they don't need to ban him out because he's been solo queuing as TF for some reason or something like that. It's something like
that's the I mean, that's the depth of the meta, because how much of it is individual players, how much of it is coaching and team strategy ahead of time, and what do they see, right? What do they see in that moment? What is the mind game they're going to play? Maybe they get double mind gamed, right? The Uno reverse card gets hit in that pick ban system, because you're talking about a lot of rock paper scissors, and you have to try to read the strategies in those moments then, because it really does define how you then play and then how you then buy, if I understand League correctly.
Yeah. No, that's the big part of like the coach itself is there during champ select, is there to help you make like suss out these these situations of like, are
that's
they trying
the role
to,
of the coach.
Yeah, that's like besides like VOD review and stuff like that, like he's on stage helping with champ select and team comps. But
in that way,
sometimes so.
Yeah, okay. In that way, I think I would like to see like with League of Legends coaches kind of be in comms a bit. So it's almost like a soccer football kind of mentality where you have somebody, giving you a little bit of vision on the side a little bit. Yeah. And I wonder how much that would impact or change the play out of the game or the capacity of these players to make plays, basically. So kind of interesting, especially with the coaches doing a lot of the pick ban deciding and, the mental, because it's a little bit of a chess match, and I would love to see them have a bit more impact in that chess match with the players through the game.
Yeah, me too. It would also add an extra pro onto the team. Like they get paid as like a player almost, and like they'd be part of the game, but
yeah, but yeah,
coaches. But
so I mean, let's just wrap up our predictions here for the brackets. We're pretty straightforward, and we already have a top esports 3-0 on Team Liquid. Team Liquid is in the bottom round, the losers bracket. They've got some chances, but the next loss and they're out. What do you see happening here? Is it pretty much what we were saying before? We're seeing a top esports versus a T1 in upper bracket final, because I think that's where my bets would be.
Gen G should win.
Gen G over T1.
Well, so Gen G right now is going to go to the next upper bracket semifinals over Fnatic and face top esports.
Okay. Sorry. I was looking at G2 by accident. Yeah. Gen G over Fnatic.
I do hope that I think Fnatic does have a weird potential to them, like that they might be able to get a little squirrely if they improve and do some fun stuff. Like they might
Right.
be able to take the win, but I would say like 70% chance that it's not going to happen.
They look like they're going to be the dark horse. They look like they're going to be the dark horse in the tournament, especially how they played in the play-ins.
Yeah. G2 is not beating T1. I'm not even going to entertain it. It's not even worth my time. PSG unfortunately is going to get sent to losers brackets.
Billy, let's go.
Yeah, Billy will win. And then here's where we don't know. The games can be up in the air before the upper bracket finals. So like I would most likely say that it'd be if I stick with all my projections of saying that top esports is probably going to be the best, and like top esports is going to go there. Excuse me, Jesus. First Billy. I think it'll just be like the Chinese finals again. And then I think lower bracket would end up being, Korean finals again. And then we get to the end of it, and then it's like China versus Korea. That's where I'm landing. Like
Okay.
America's out of this. Like G2 doesn't have a shot. Fnatic could be a real weird wild card, but I almost 100% would see that T1 ends up getting knocked into losers and then getting into the finals. I think T1 would make it to the finals, and then I think hopefully top esports will beat Billy. But top laner for Billy is definitely a little bit better than 369, but is what it is.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much with you on that. I think Top and T1 are going to get to the upper bracket here, and then I will probably see a rematch happen in the grand finals. I do feel like Fnatic can make a pretty strong run in the lower bracket if they don't upset Top Esports to begin with. I do think they have the capacity, Fnatic, the way they've been playing, but so hopefully they continue with that fire.
Head southwest on Madison Street.
I think it's Team Liquid and Fnatic are my dark horses in the lower bracket that might have a decent shot. Team Liquid might just be able to bounce back because they have had some pretty good runs. But yeah, it's a pretty long stretch for them to do. And fingers crossed for some good games, basically. But any final thoughts on the bracket and what to expect here in the next weekend of this?
No, man. I think I covered it pretty well. It's like, I think
right.
I think we're not gonna see any real upsets from G2. G2 is definitely gonna go into losers brackets. But yeah.
All right. Well, here we got the games. We had the game this morning at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check the timetables for your own time zone and when it's happening. But tomorrow at 5 a.m. we're going to be watching Fnatic against Gen G, and then the games will continue Thursday, Friday, Saturday, etc. That's pretty much it. I think we've got a pretty big weekend ahead of us as far as games go. This is a pretty good talk. I think we covered the meta we are expecting. We're covering the results and predictions here that we're expecting as well. Any final thoughts, Nick, before we actually close out here? Send off until we see you next week. All right. Keeping it straight, keeping it real. Well, there you have it. This has been the Esports Meta. If you enjoyed watching us, let us know by liking and subscribing. It helps tell the algorithm about this to the world, make more people know about what we're doing here. You can also follow us on social medias. I like doing this call to action at the end because it's my salesman pitch. Hey, have you seen this? You can follow us on social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, if you use Threads. But that's pretty much it. There's a lot going on today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Nick, anything you want to say to send off? I've asked you 3 times.
No, I have nothing, man. Just don't type in game. Just play. That's all.
I know. I thought it might be like a Rumpelstiltskin thing where I need to ask you a 3rd time to get anything out of you. But thanks so much for joining me today through the technical difficulties. It's a great time talking with you. This has been the eSports Meta. My name is Billy Sims. I switched to scenes inappropriate. This has been the eSport Meta. My name is Billy Sims. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, I gotta go. I'll talk to you later, dude.
All right, later.